Everybody, let's enjoy that!
Hello honeys, I've collected all 57 new coords featured in the Aikatsu On Parade anime and I put them all together for you. Enjoy! 57 Happy Picnic. Hear me out on this one, I'm like 90% confident that this is Happy Picnic from My Little Heart. And Happy Picnic was never shown in Aikatsu Stars, so it's new for Aikatsu On Parade. So it counts. That said, it is almost unrecognizable and barely a readable drawing, so it's in last place. 56. Ambient Bohemian. Ambient Bohemian is a Bohemian sky coord. It uses a few details like feather accessories that I understand as being culturally sensitive for many indigenous groups in the Americas. For that reason, I'm only giving it the credit of being a readable illustration and leaving it down here. 55. Halloween Parade. Halloween Parade is from Maple Ribbon, and it's been modified to include all these good luck symbols for the storyline. For fairness, I'm only judging coords based on their anime appearance. The modified version is what we're judging. It intentionally looks like a mess, but the basic silhouette and cut of the pieces is still cute. 54. Charmi Ribbon. Charmi Ribbon is another maple ribbon coord, and it introduces a consistent issue I have with the brand: dense, zigzaggy stitching used as an accent. The sharp lines of the stitching on the bias contrast with the softer lines and patterns in the rest of the coord, making them stand out a lot. They create more visual noise than I'd like, making it hard to appreciate how cute everything else is. 53. Melt Pink Angel. Melt Pink Angel is a unit dress for the Angel Sisters unit. Its color palette doesn't appeal to me. The mint green and pops of yellow are both too cool tones to suit the warmer pink. And the pink matches the other dresses, so I don't think it's the problem. The cupcake silhouette is cute, and I don't mind how densely detailed the bias is. It just needs a little color balancing. 52. Romance Luxury. I feel torn on Romance Luxury because I like the concept, but the illustrations don't show it very well. It's a romance kiss coord, but you can barely see its main focal point, the black belt at the waist. Because you mostly just see it solid lavender shapes with hints of black on the gloves and hat, I had to drop its ranking more than I wanted to. 51. Three Goddess Melody. Three Goddess Melody is a sugar melody coord that is mainly this low because the pink stockings don't appeal to me. White stockings would have tied the top color into the design more and improved the visual flow. I also feel like the sky blue trim and the dark red trim clash too much, which distracts from more intricate details on the top and skirt. 50. Three Goddess Aqua. Three Goddess Aqua is a material color coord, and I do like its palette. It is perhaps overly saturated though, especially the neon yellow accents. I also like the cute shoulder pads as well as the color blocking in the boots that make them look like they're different colors from certain angles. 49. Joy Pop Sport. Joy Pop Sport doesn't belong to any brand. Hoodies are pretty rare for Aikatsu coords, so I wanted to give it extra points for being unique. The denim skirt's plaid section adds some visual interest that I personally don't need, but it shows some extra thought being put into the design. Not my style, but still executed pretty well. 48. Three Goddess Dream. Three Goddess Dream comes from Rainbow Berry Parfait. I think it has a cleaner look than the other two Three Goddess coords because it's primarily monochromatic. The rainbow appliques on the skirt and boots do a good job of tying into the colorful details on the top, but their shapes feel a bit odd. I do like all the heart motifs. I think they do a good job of finding creative ways to incorporate them in each piece. 47. Pastel Purple Angel. Pastel Purple Angel is another unit dress for the Angel Sisters unit, and the colors are much better here. I can't help but notice the random yellow sleeves, but they aren't too distracting at least. The wing-like ruffle neckline stands out well in this version because you can see it better through the thinner ribbon. 46. Ribbon Emerald. I don't think Ribbon Emerald, a maple ribbon coord, is supposed to look this desaturated and muddy. Part of the problem is the stage it's on, which is way more saturated and has more color contrast in comparison. The other problem is the visual noise created by the mosaic trim texture and the pink stitching in the bias and skirt. They both obscure the colors and lines of the details they're placed next to, blurring areas that should be focal points directing the eye and adding structure. It is interesting, it just hasn't been shown off well. 45. Queen of Venus. Queen of Venus at least has clear color blocking. It's from Perfect Queen and is way more busy than I'd like it to be. There is a good foundation here, the color palette works well, and the cut of each piece has the start of a coherent visual flow. But then there's just so much nonsense dumped on top of it, like all of the horizontal lines of beads and embroidery across the front of the skirt, or the gold band around the waist cutting the bias in two and mirroring the nearly identical band at the top of the skirt. I barely even noticed the random pink and purple wings. Points for complexity, but not for execution. 44. Peridot Leo. Peridot Leo is very green. It's a spicy agaha coord, and honestly the yellow fur trim isn't my favorite. I do feel relieved that the overall design feels balanced. The palette is limited in a satisfying way, the silhouette is basic but has interesting structural details in the corset-like bodice, and there's a nice mix of textures and patterns. 43. Red Gothic Stripe. Red Gothic Stripe is another tiny background drawing, but I think it looks cute even though most of the detail is simplified. It's a spiced coord dress, and honestly maybe I like it because I can't see that much of the detail. I like that the palette is limited to red and black. I like that the focal points in the skirt lacing and white top embroidery are clearly visible. I like that the stripes are carried through each piece. Ignorance is bliss sometimes. 42. Orange Summer Adventure. Orange Summer Adventure, a shiny smile coord, forced me to accept that it is loud and bright. I had concerns about the orange glove and neon palette, but the dark purple and navy in the top and belt feel like relaxed enough resting places for the eye. Maybe I'm also being persuaded by the slight hints of nautical motifs in the striped section of this coord. They're comforting to me. 41. Graceful Rose. It is a crime that Graceful Rose is a premium rare, but we can't dwell on that. It's an Angel Sugar coord, and as much as I don't want it to use those mint green accents, it is doing it anyway. The dense pleats in the skirt and sailor collar paired with poofy cap sleeves are all super cute elements. I like the subtle floral prints throughout each piece. The row of bows on the bodice is one of my design pet peeves, but it's not terrible. 40. Amethyst Aquarius. Amethyst Aquarius also uses one of my design pet peeves: crystal gradient textures used as flat 2D fabric rather than a 3D element. Additionally, I've talked about how snowflakes feel out of place for Featuring Girl, which is the brand for this coord. Even with those two issues, I don't think this is a bad design. I like the thigh-length boots because they use gemstone accents and draw their colors from elements in the dress. The halter neckline and asymmetrical upper arm jewelry are also pretty interesting. 39. Hawaiian Bacons. Hawaiian Bacons is another shiny smile coord, using much less saturated colors thankfully. Even if that's just because they're being washed out by the spotlight in this illustration, it's all we had to go off for this ranking. I like that the yellow and green tropical print is the dominant texture for the top and skirt, while a pink and purple gradient is used as an accent in both pieces. The flower details are also really cute, as is all the asymmetrical jewelry. 38. Little Ribbon Story. Little Ribbon Story brings back some of my maple ribbon concerns. The zigzaggy stitching is featured more subtly in the bodice and skirt, but it is there and it does still distract me. Adding to the visual noise are the pearl accents, which introduce a ton of tiny dark lines into the design. I do enjoy the color palette and intricately detailed ribbons and ruffles, but the visual balance isn't completely there for me. 37. Modern Couture. Modern Couture is another material color design, and it does make me question whether I remember what material color's concept was. Regardless, I like that we can see most of this design in the illustration. It has a limited palette, which is good, and mixed patterns are broken up by a big white stripe down the front of the dress. I don't love all the buttons, but the overall design is pretty sleek. 36. Happy Yellow Lime. Happy Yellow Lime is a unit dress for the Powerful Dreamin' unit. It's also very green. Saturated greens just aren't my friends, but I don't think it's that bad here. In my opinion, the yellow accent color saves it. The knee-length boots are yellow, which help warm up the overall palette. The yellow also works well with the purple, orange, pink, and blue accent colors. It's messy, but that does fit the playful tone of this coord. It wants to be silly. 35. Happy Orange Shower. Happy Orange Shower is also a Po'ofua Dreamin' dress, and it has a more analogous palette. That means there's less hue contrast. There is still a lot of hue contrast to be clear because of the rainbow candy accent, but it's less than Happy Yellow Lime, and because of that it's easier on my eyes. I would have ranked it higher if the boots didn't feel a little too dark and heavy for my taste. 34. Sky Blue Angel. Sky Blue Angel is the third unit dress for the Angel Sisters unit. You know me, or maybe you don't, I love blue, pink, and white together. I do have a couple of critiques for how busy the trim on those bows looks and the inconsistent line work style for the lace on the skirt, but overall it's a cute dress, very poofy with good proportions. 33. Botanical Sky. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but for a Bohemian Sky coord, I think Botanical Sky plays its design a lot safer than usual. Earthier color palettes are pretty unique for Aikatsu, so I appreciate the balanced application of magenta, cream, and brown throughout the pieces. The cropped peasant blouse gives the design some maturity, and the asymmetrical skirt has a nice variety of textures. There isn't anything I'd nitpick on a technical level. 32. Happy Purple Dream. Happy Purple Dream is the last unit dress for Powerful Dreamin'. The saturated pink, purple, and blue palette isn't usually something I'm particularly drawn to, but I think it works for the candy theme. It's hitting the right balance between playful variation and elegant cohesion. Making the boots blue was a great choice because they keep the overall visual impact light while tying into the blue trim in the top. 31. Bless Aurora. We've talked about this before. One of the worst things an Aikatsu coord can do for me is weigh down the animation. And unfortunately, Blessed Aurora from Angel Sugar has too much visual weight for my taste. Part of it is the dropped waist on the skirt. It lowers the center of gravity on the character and makes leg movements feel more restricted. The other problem is layering. I think layers work great to create lines and direct visual flow in a visual hierarchy, but to do that you need intentional contrast. The layers on both the skirt and top either blur together or create lines that don't lead anywhere. I give the design points for complexity, but not much more than that. 30. Mellow Fantasy. Mellow Fantasy and Aurora Fantasy dress at least keeps the visual weight light. It still has a dropped waist, but the layering has a clear hierarchy. You see the high contrast intricate top first, then the eye travels down the yellow section of the skirt that is aligned to its width. The horizontal lines in the yellow layers direct the eye out to the draped ribbons and other decorative details, which slope down to the pleated trim on the skirt and down to the shoes. Simple but elegant. 29. Night Sky Luna. Night Sky Luna is from Luna Witch, and although it's a little hard to read the skirt details in this frame, I like the overall design. The high contrast black, purple, and yellow palette reminds me of Halloween, and I really like the astronomical motifs. The lace panel on the bodice is a unique element and balances the white layer of the skirt well. The checkered pattern on the skirt and jagged hemline are pretty noisy, but not distracting because the other patterns are very limited. 28. Pastel Fin Pisces. Speaking of noisy, I'm pretty disappointed with the top of Pastel Fin Pisces. As a maple ribbon coord, it maintains its zigzag stitching motif in the form of crisscross lacing in the top and skirt. I don't love how graphic it is against the subtle fish scale texture. The top is also covered by an applique with 2 layers of fabric in different colors and textures and a cluster of shiny 3D embellishments. Combined with the dark blue border on each section of the top, it's way too much. The overall cut of each piece is really interesting. I think the skirt is a lot better, but Pastel Fin Pisces is this high for colors and concept rather than execution. 27. Gorgeous Doll. Gorgeous Doll is from Romance Kiss and thankfully keeps things pretty simple. Even for a 2D design, there's plenty of detail in the top and care put into the jewelry accents. The skirt is a bit simple with a disproportionate amount of contrast underneath the striped peplum, but I do like that the dark purple stripes are carried down by ribbon lacing on the legs tying into the shoes. The hair ribbon does a good job of tying into the green gemstones too. 26. Happy Nile Ruby. Happy Nile Ruby is another Romance Kiss coord and it's so interesting to me. Look at that balloon skirt. They always create such interesting organic shapes, and I like the pairing of this one with a cropped cutout top. Mirroring the shape of the cutout with the shape of the pattern section on the skirt is a great use of visual rhythm. The color palette is also flawless. Nice work. 25. Checkmate Queen. Checkmate Queen is up here for its careful shape and color layering. The textures are all simplified to solid color blocking, but that lets the structure of the coord shine. The yellow trim on the skirt panels is the main focal point and ties into the yellow outline of the gemstone at the neckline. Your eye moves vertically between them, supported by the stripe of red down the center of the dress. The pointed layer of the skirt connects a pointed stripe of gray with a horizontal stripe of gray, sending the eye out to the outer edges of the skirt and down to the trailing skirt layer and boots. It's smart and effective. 24. Star Harmony Purple. I feel a little bad for Star Harmony Purple because its ranking mostly comes down to color. The Aikatsu Friends green and pink uniforms do look cute, but they're not my favorite color combination. The gold accents are fine here, but the shiny silver pearls and sparkles don't fit the warm tones of the palette. I do like the texture variation, and the overall coord has been edited down well while still maintaining a lot of complexity. 23. Lady Pink Crown. Lady Pink Crown uses one of my favorite color palettes, but I'm torn on some of its other elements. I like the puff sleeves because they remind me of Thumbelina Bouquet, which is a nice reference. The bodice overall is very cute and well designed. The skirt feels lacking though, mostly because of the rigging. The top pink layer has been pinned to the bottom white layer, so it has a very smooth, rounded shape and the pieces don't flutter out to add any extra movement. It makes the overall coord look stiffer than necessary. 22. Fourstar Luxel. Fourstar Luxel is full of rich detail, and the glow effect of the gold accents is very impactful. I'm still not a huge fan of the ball gown skirt and bustle look, but it works with the historical military motifs. The only thing holding it back is how busy the bodice looks with such prominent gold lacing. It competes with the visual noise of the ribbon and ruffles directly above it. 21. Checkmate Knight. Checkmate Knight is only seen in 2D form, but it still shows good design editing. Most of the visual interest comes from a careful balance of curved versus straight lines, and color is used effectively to block in a visual hierarchy. I like that the exposed cage bustle references Rosanna Thorn, and the mini top hat works well to carry the rose motif to the top of the design. 20. Checkmate King. I have similar thoughts about Checkmate King. Good editing with even bolder shapes and colors. The batwing motif is especially interesting, and the visual rhythm between the black and white ruffled sections is very strong. 19. Apasionado Red. Apasionado Red feels more authentic to Spanish costume design than usual for Aikatsu, mostly because of the high contrast white, red, green, and yellow floral print that's used as an accent. It stands out from the softer gradients and more subtle value contrast in the rest of the coord. I really like how unique the pattern is, as well as the draping in the top and skirt. 18. Apasionado Purple. Apasionado Purple is much more typical of Aikatsu in having a lower contrast floral print accent. It shares the same cut and draping of Apasionado Red, and I just prefer the black, purple, and orange palette. The roses on the sandal lacing is a great detail too. It's a shame you can't see them in most shots. 17. Apasionado Gold. Apasionado Gold has the least amount of contrast, so part of me wants to say that it's the least interesting. But because it's being worn by a taller character, it ends up looking fuller and more dramatic than the other two coords. White tends to make shapes look bigger as well, so the overall visual impact ends up being stronger than the other two coords. It has the exact same cut and style, but the color palette and length make it look more impressive. 16. Peach Shining Line. I really enjoy the concept and execution for the Shining Line coords, and Peach Shining Line is the weakest to me because of the gradient in the skirt. It'll be clearer when we look at the other colorways, but the color contrast here adds more visual noise than is necessary. The gold accents on the top blend together with the peach base color, so the blue accent at the bottom ends up being a lot higher contrast and therefore more distracting. 15. Lovely Queen. Speaking of contrast, Lovely Queen really commits to a high contrast palette. Black is used heavily in each piece, and is especially impactful in the bodice and gloves. The zigzag stitching finally looks more at home here, since there are other details like ruffled sleeves and white skirt trim that are even bolder and overpower their visual weight. This design is streamlined enough for me. I think I just would have added a touch of black into the wings as well. 14. Pink Shining Line. Pink Shining Line looks super cute. Like Peach Shining Line, there are a ton of intricate details, and the color contrast works better here to me. The yellow gradient in the skirt still pulls the eye down, but the red ribbon draped over it encourages your eye to keep moving back into the rest of the design. The ribbon stockings and star bow tie are two more details I noticed a lot in these coords. 13. Blue Shining Line. The monochromatic blue palette works even better in Blue Shining Line. With less hue contrast, the gold accents and colorful bodice patterns really stand out. The visual noise of the ribbons and other accents has been knocked back a lot too. I appreciate the chance to get a better look at the overall structure of each piece, since there are so many details I'd like to focus on. 12. Sky Shining Line. Sky Shining Line does the best job with color contrast because it uses vibrant pink ribbons to balance the pink gradient in the skirt. You don't get quite as much focus on the gold accents, but the pink ribbons create strong new focal points in the bodice, skirt, stockings, and gloves through both hue and value contrast. 11. Kitty Tricky. Kitty Tricky is super creative and overcomes a lot of my design biases. For one thing, I think pumpkin shorts work really well in this design. Their playfulness ties into the cartoony cat theme, and the shape is reflected in the detached puff sleeves. Those sleeves also tie into the pattern of the stocking, so everything feels tied together cohesively. The orange fur trim in the boots is a little out of place, but you don't notice it because it matches Akari's hair color. 10. Crystal Beauty. Crystal Beauty appears to be very simple, so I had to ask myself why I liked it so much. I think it comes down to the texture variation, balanced color palette, and proportions of each piece. There's a subtle embossed fine texture mixed with sparkly gradients and matte sections, which all look beautiful. The flower appliques are used really well. I love the feathery wing focal point on the bust. Maybe it just taps into my inner Barbie movie fan. 9. Arabian Beauty. Arabian Beauty is all about fabric draping for me. The top is definitely the highlight with its dramatic cutout shape and prominent jewelry. The color gradient also emphasizes the point where the fabric loosens up to drape around the figure. I like that the draping is carried into the skirt in a wrap style, and the ruffled trim and flared silhouette help bring in a more youthful tone. The jewelry all looks great. I especially like the asymmetrical leg beadwork. 8. Pure Ribbon Up. Pure Ribbon Up is an explosion of detail. I think it works because of how much control you have over value contrast in illustration. With minimal shadows in the artwork, the details blend together more than they would in Aikatsu style 3D rendering. I really like the look of the intricate ribbons, ruffles, and beads in this dress. The pastel color palette is an added bonus too. 7. Moon Serenity. I had Moon Serenity way far down at first, but kept rising up my ranking somehow. Despite not liking the blue polka dot accent fabric, the overall design appeals to me a lot. The elegance of the off-shoulder sleeves paired with the glamorous halter neckline creates a really interesting shape for the bodice. The lace sleeves, gold trim, and blue and white color scheme are all things I like as well. This coord just has a lot of creative ideas that are executed really well. 6. Dream Eminence. I also had Dream Eminence pretty far down initially, but the design is just too good to hold it back any further. It elevates the Dream Academy military motifs and mutton sleeves so perfectly. The tartan pattern is subtle and gives just enough texture variation alongside the gold accents. I like that the palette uses a warm black in very strategic places to make the bow ties and white gloves stand out. Great balance. 5. Greatest Venus. If you know me, you know I love white and gold as a base palette, and adding pink and purple makes it so much more fun. I like the palette and overall design enough to overlook how weird I think the beaded epaulettes look on the shoulders. The bodice is very structured and contrasts nicely with the looser layering in the skirt. Lots of asymmetry and thoughtful draping in these pieces. It's both strong and elegant. 4. Rainbow Sky. Rainbow Sky shares a lot of design motifs with these shining line coords, but I like the layered tutu skirt more because it has a more dynamic shape. In the anime, there's a comment about how the lame sparkly texture can be overwhelming if used too much. While I definitely think it's been heavily used here, I agree that it just barely avoids being too much. I like the color palette too. It balances saturated blue and pink with pastel rainbow accents and white to break it all up. I also really love the layered design of the sleeves. 3. Starlight Shining. Starlight Shining has such a simple elegance to it. The glowy gold accents are minimized to focus the eye on the star brooch at the neckline and the pleated peplum on the skirt. I appreciate how most of the detail is reserved for the skirt, which lets you focus on the beautiful night sky-like stripes and oversized red bow at the back. There's enough texture spread throughout each piece to look balanced, but I love the effect of the sparkles on the skirt in particular. 2. Arabesque Bright. The bold shapes and colors in this design do something to my brain. Even in 2D form, I find it so captivating. The detached bell sleeves, color block tank top bodice, and dramatic ruffled flare skirt all have great proportions. And the colors work so beautifully with all of the gold trim and jewelry. It has trailing ribbons at the back too for even more detail in the overall silhouette. It's gorgeous. 1. Sarai Chandelier. Consider Sarai Chandelier justice for all the times I've spoken ill of ball gown silhouettes, because I can't deny that this one works fantastically. The layering in the skirt is very complex, just like I've criticized before, but here it stays comprehensible. It all adheres to the focal point of the round gem at the front of the skirt. Everything from the color blocking to the draping and jewelry lead the eye up to that focal point, then up to the corresponding flower focal point on the bodice, and then straight into the neckline jewelry and the face of the character. Everything flows well, the moon guide's concept is executed perfectly, and there's nothing I'd change on a technical level. Even the moon halo looks stunning. Let me know your favorite Aikatsu On Parade coords in the comments below, and look out for my Mizuki deep dive in a couple of weeks. Bye bye!
Thank you, beautiful moon!